Hello and welcome to DIWIW, and I just watched the latest episode of Interview with the Vampire. And this episode, I gotta say, wow. A lot of people were doubting whether or not Interview with the Vampire, aka the season of the Vampire Lestat, was actually gonna be good. This episode delivered. I have my notes on the episode right in front of me. We're gonna do a recap of the episode, and then at the end of this little tangent, we're gonna do a review of what I think of each and every one of the characters individually, and what I think about the everything about this episode, because it was a lot. It was dark. Let's get into it. Before we start, make sure to like, save, and follow and subscribe. Make sure to hit the bell icon and follow me for more, and stay and comment if you think anything I missed in the video, and comment if there's any show or series you want me to review. This episode primarily opens up with two side plots going, which is Daniel Malloy's interview with Lestat, and Louis hunting down Bruce for what he did to Claudia because of the last guy. I'm forgetting his name. The last guy who told him oh, Bruce is hiding in this specific area. Go ahead and you can go get him. So these two specific side plots are happening. Bruce is getting chased down, and Lestat is starting to explain a little bit of his backstory because Daniel Malloy wants to know all about it. Daniel Malloy starts pushing a lot for Lestat's his stutter and his way he's speaking in his backstory, because I think his mom Gabriella, which we're gonna get to a bit later, starts antagonizing him, and gives the little ploy to Daniel Malloy to start antagonizing Lestat for that stutter a lot too. And then Lestat starts to talk about the witch burning, and then with the witch burning, it goes into his childhood and him dodging and deflecting questions. And it continues on to the point he falls in love with Nicholas, which is a very, very big point in this entire episode. Nicholas, in my tier list video, I really understated how important this character is to the overall story. Now knowing the story, and now knowing a little bit more about the whole interview with the vampire world, Nicholas is so much important to the character of Lestat, and so much more important to the overall story in general. Let's continue. I wrote down in my notes while I was watching this episode, I thought Magnus was gonna kill Nicholas, which is a completely different from what actually happens because of the whole foreshadowing, and I thought the character direction was going this way. Anyways, Nicholas and Lestat meet up. We find out they come from generally the same village, generally from the same part of town, and this version of Lestat has a whole lot less of the charming aspect that he does, right? And we can see him fumble a little, which I really liked because it showed the progression in character. And while Nicholas and Lestat are falling in love, the French Revolution is happening in the background, and it's funny because it's just a background. Anyways, with Lestat's current day narration with Daniel Malloy, it can be very obvious to tell when he's lying, and it's very obvious to tell when he's lying for a specific emotional reason. It's so obvious that I kind of consider it a little bit more truthful than Louis' lies, because Louis' lies is to construct a narrative that kind of protects himself in a very insidious way, while Lestat's lies is this brazen show of emotion that's just everywhere. So to continue on with the episode, Lestat lies a little. Lestat has this doppelganger who, because he was late, was there already, and Louis' mom, Lestat's mom takes a liking to him and goes into the bathroom and does a very performative scene to antagonize Lestat, which is absolutely kind of disgusting because I don't like Lestat's mom that much. And we get to the entire relationship between them and them two, which is not that healthy and not that great. One interesting thing that Daniel Malloy brings up is the story of Magnus when Kid when Magnus took Lestat, and Lestat keeps trying to like romanticize it, and he keeps on pushing it, coming from like Louis' point of view of telling Daniel. But when Louis said that story to Daniel, he didn't mention the part where Gabriella was there, which is really weird because a lot of the times people have a very hard time bringing up like Gabriella in memories or Gabriella in person. I'm pretty sure that was like a hallucination, but I'm not sure. We will have to see later. And then the scene continues with like Lestat bringing up Gabriella, and then Louis looks into the corner like he's not really looking at anybody, and that moment was crazy because it was like, oh, a little clue that it's an illusion, and a little clue to like kind of the character of Gabriella and how elusive she is as a person and as a vampire. Then we get the scene of Nicholas starting to lose his mind, and Louis like really begging for Nicholas to put it all together, and Armand is there for like some reason. Armand like trying to get like Lestat to love him, and the entire time Gabrielle is there. And it's kind of weird because like Gabrielle seems to be a character that is always present, but sometimes other characters can't perceive her as well. And then Gabrielle gives that line of like, oh, don't bring, no, beforehand, way beforehand, Gabrielle brings the line, don't bring Nicholas into internally because he won't handle it as well. And then like Nicholas starts to lose his mind. We get the famous line of like Lestat being like, Nikki, no, don't do that. That scene was so good. It was heart-wrenching hearing like Lestat genuinely beg for someone to be like, well. And then from Lestat, I think this is a lie, telling how Armand put Nicholas into the fire, and he like repeats to Daniel Malloy. Keep in mind, whole time interview is still happening between Daniel Malloy and Lestat right here. And then the interview comes to an end. Daniel Malloy orders the people to check the recording, and the entire time just a hallucination that Lestat played because he didn't like Daniel Malloy that much. And I know in the next episode Daniel is gonna be really mad at Lestat for pulling that. It's a very interesting way to show like the telepathic dominance that vampires have with each other, and like the true power that the vampires in this series have. I really like this scene. And in this part of the episode, we cut to Louis pulling up on Bruce and pulling up on his crew and basically like disassembling the vampires. Eventually Bruce enters his own house, gets into underground, and meets Louis, where Louis like dismounts, like puts Bruce in a physically incapacitable state where he can't do anything. This is where he found the letters of Claudia, and at the same time this is paralleled with what happened to Matt between Lestat and Magnus, and this was like the real magnum opus of the scene. This scene was absolutely haunting, the way they paralleled what happened to Claudia and Bruce and what happened to Lestat and Magnus. That scene was really like hard to look through and hard to look away from at the same time. And Magnus is one of the most vampiric vampire looking persons, and I heard because of from the books, the reason why he looks so weird is because he kind of took immortality from another vampire unwillingly, and then like at the end of their life he gave immortality to another vampire unwillingly, which is like crazy as a person. And the reason why the other vampires didn't want to give him, I don't think it's confirmed yet, is because he was way too old and like way too like gross. Vampires basically want to only have like beautiful vampires, and like with the way that Magnus is, I can kind of see why. I mean, isolation is really hard, but isolation is a lot harder when you look disturbing to your victims, like really hard to lure in. And he's probably a vampire that would have to hunt with a lot of force, and probably why he uses force in this place too. And his entire vampire journey started with force. He's just like a really weird, gross little creature. I don't like him. And what's so unsettling is also I did a video on Obsession, but the audio isn't that good. I got a new mic thing. Agnes reminds me of kind of analog Nikki from Obsession. If she was just like running free and like Bear didn't have any of the power at all in that scenario. And the way Magnus acts in the scene is absolutely haunting, and like the fact that he's always like in the corner of Lestat and he was finding out like bones and burials of like the things people that come close to the idealized version that he wanted to do was absolutely haunting. And then Louis uses the fire gifts to end Bruce, and then we get the point of view of this other girl that was with Bruce in the beginning of like Louis' whole thing, where now Bruce being out, which is also like oh, Louis is the villain in somebody else's story and somebody else's like vampire origin. And then everything with Lestat completely crashing starts to make a little bit more sense on how like Lestat acts, on how like why he acts out the way he does, and like music being a release and like the whole anger issue. Like, damn, you really had a lot more parallels to Claudia than you think you did. Like, Claudia was really your person, and Lestat, she was like really a parallel with you, which makes her be so sad to the way she was mistreated in the series. And that is all for this episode. Now, I'm going to be reviewing and going over what I think individually of each and every one of the characters in this episode. Here's my opinion of almost every major character, starting with Lestat. Lestat in this episode did a wonderful performance in like what trauma can do to a person. His entire like his entire background with what happened with him in Magnus was absolutely gut-wrenching. His entire like exploration and the way he copes with it was absolutely amazing to watch, and a great visual detail. Overall, very good, very high level of acting, and something that I would love to continue with. His character and the way he relates to Claudia is something that I want to see explored a lot more, and hopefully it's something that we will get to see explored a lot more in the later episodes. His relationship with Nicholas and the way he tries to save him from his own madness trying to use the vampire gift was absolutely horrendous, and the way he screamed for like Nicholas to like quit his madness was like absolutely good. And I wouldn't be surprised if Armand like was using some mind control to make Nicholas a little bit insane, because that just seems like the type of character that Armand is. And then we can transfer to Armand, which crazy enough, both Claudia and Nicholas in the memory, because like he wanted to be number one and wanted to be loved so bad, which is like, ooh, pretty dark. And the parallels there with like Armand being this very vampiric, ghostly figure that's been around for a very long time and having like all experience and wisdom way above Lestat, and that dynamic playing out was very insane and like very cool to see on film. His ending scene with him checking into the therapy session and him wanting to like connect with people again, I'm pretty sure he's trying to spark a new coven or something. And like the found community that he always tries to go to, because he's fundamentally like a very lonely person, even though he can like just go out in the sun in broad daylight, is a very haunting detail of his character. Overall, I really liked Armand in this episode. I would give him like 8.5 in this episode, which is very, very good. Next up is Louis. Louis in this episode going on to read Claudia's journal and the parallels that they have on Claudia was absolutely amazing. I'm really wondering what internally he's thinking when like thinking about Claudia, or like thinking about whether this revenge feels something. And the detail of him having to confirm with Lestat whether or not what he actually saw was Claudia was absolutely devastating. The waiter in the restaurant. Next up, we have Gabriella. Gabriella, I don't really like her as a character, but she plays a very integral and antagonistic force to Lestat. Being one of Lestat's like worst impulses made flesh, he really explains the background of Lestat. He really explains the dysfunction inside Lestat's heart, and he really explains the approval seeking that Lestat displays throughout the series. So overall, pretty decent character, but a very antagonistic force. Next up is Nicholas. I really liked Nicholas in this episode as he really showed what madness and a vampirism can do to a person, and it really showed like a different side to Lestat, an early lover side to Lestat that could have been like there in a better environment. I really liked the entire like little section of like him back in the day when they were just like didn't know anything, but like very good, very well portrayed, and I would give him like a 7.5. Next up is Magnus. Magnus is absolutely terrifying. He looks like the most deranged vampire on the face of the planet. He looks like a vampiric transformation gone wrong. His teeth are so wrong. His eyes are so wrong. The red around them is so weird. And like what he did to Lestat was totally messed up. And like the most harrowing scene in the entire series of Interview with the Vampire might be the most harrowing scene, and the parallels with like Claudia and what like vampires do to each other. Like I think when he was talking to Claudia, there are a lot more cooler vampires out there. I think Lestat was specifically mentioning Magnus. Absolutely amazing antagonist, and I would like to see a little more plot and a little more background to how he works. Next up, with a smaller role, Claudia. Claudia played a role in this episode of being a narration and a constantly haunting figure in the narrative. I hope Claudia shows up a lot more. I hope Claudia is never forgotten. I hope Claudia comes up in every other conversation, and I hope Lestat really deals with what happens with Claudia, or what like Claudia's point of view was. As I said before, Claudia is my absolute favorite character in the entire series, and like the fact that his gift to his second lover, just like Louis, being being completely to being completely a gift of love, trying to like reconcile what happened with like the trauma that Lestat struggled through, with the trauma that Claudia suffered through too. All I'm saying is there's major parallels, and I hope that gets explored a lot more. That will be all for this episode. Thank you for watching. Please tell me what you think about like the characters in Interview with the Vampire. Make sure to like, save, and follow again. Give any recommendations to any shows you would like me to check out, and thank you for watching all the way to the end.